Hello and welcome to 2021's second edition of Extra Shot, the programme that likes to pore over the hot topics in the telecoms industry. There, I'm already struggling with the caffeine references. My name is Ray Lemaitre. I'm the editorial director at Telecom TV, and I'm here to host the programme that takes a look back at some of the themes from our recent DSP Leaders World Forum. As ever, I am, thankfully, not alone, as I'm joined by my colleague and supplier of exotic dark roast beans, Telecom TV's Director of Content, Guy Daniels, and by Chris Lewis, MD of Lewis Insight, who has a reputation for just being exotic, but I feel that's a topic for a different channel. So, gentlemen, welcome back to the virtual coffee store. Chris, how has 2021 been treating you so far?
It's been very busy, Ray. I think the level of activity in all aspects of the industry is just phenomenal. You know, obviously recovering from COVID, new service initiatives and all the topics that you covered in DSP Leaders. So yeah, been a really good start to the year. Thank you.
Excellent. And Guy, how's your bean hopper looking? Not running low, I hope?
No, it's not. It's topped up with those little shiny pearls of beauty, which are coming today from a fair trade supplier in Uganda.
Oh my goodness, I'm almost drooling on my microphone here, but let's see if I can avoid that because we've got a very full show today. So let's crack on because we've got 6 special guests. So let's meet some of them right away and get to know them better. And to get to know them better, let's find out about their hot beverage preferences. Are they tea or are they coffee fans? I put this vital question to Stephen Spallici, VP of Product Marketing and Solutions, Telco and Edge Cloud at VMware.
I am absolutely a coffee person, and more importantly, I'm an espresso person. Furthermore, I'm an espresso lungo. I like a long espresso.
Does anyone else think that Stephen's just given himself a new nickname at VMware there? He may forever be known as Lungo. Chris, what do you think?
I think it's a fine nickname to have. And of course, it's that way of extending that espresso experience just to the right level. So yeah, Lungo, totally agree.
Absolutely. Okay, we'll be talking to Stephen again a bit later on. But also on today's show is Danielle Royston, CEO and founder at Telco DR. But she's an extra shot veteran and has already pinned her flag to the T-mast. So let's find out about the hot beverage preferences of Phil Mottram. He's Global Senior Vice President and General Manager, Communications Technology Group at Hewlett Packard Enterprise, or HPE. Is he a coffee or a tea person?
Yeah, I'm more of a tea person than a coffee person. And my drink of choice is a black Earl Grey tea.
Well, that's very refined. Phil is obviously from better British stock than either of us here today. Guy, what do you make of that?
Yeah, I can just see Phil with his china teacup and saucer with the whole Downton Abbey vibe going on there.
I wonder if he has staff downstairs. We'll ask him another time. Okay, well, we have 3 more special guests on the show today, but we'll get to them later and also see how these very important choices are impacting our world-leading containerized beverage function infrastructure chart. We know it's world-leading because no one else is silly enough to have one. That's one way to be ahead of the market. Be the only one in it. But enough of that. It's time now to start delving into some of the key topics discussed during this year's DSP Leaders World Forum, which ran over 5 days, had a multitude of speakers and had a specific theme for each day. Now, all of that detail can be found on the Telecom TV website. And if you want a snapshot of some of the key discussions and insights, check out our post-show delegate report, which you can download from the site. So overall, though, you could describe the week's programming as looking at the next steps for digital service providers, the DSPs. The ongoing evolution of service providers towards more cloud-oriented platforms, processes and operations was a key theme. So, of course, the term cloud native cropped up on more than a few occasions. Now, service providers have been demanding cloud-native functions for years, and vendors have been talking about them for a long time too. So I asked Stephen Spallici from VMware if we've actually reached the point where cloud-native functions, or CNFs, are being deployed and used by service providers, or are they still sitting on the wish list?
Where, yes, cloud native functions are being deployed by CSPs. And what they're doing is they're solving problems related to, amongst other things, things like, incorporating their DevOps process, fostering a microservice architecture in their environment, improving their profitability, and they're also improving resource utilization. They do this, by the way, through the automation of the deployment of these CNFs, or cloud native functions. And they do this, and they automate the onboarding and the upgrading of those functions and the infrastructure components. They're leveraging things like zero-touch provisioning to enable this as well. This enables the CSP to have full lifecycle management that they can define and they can apply policy for into a decisioning engine to automate deployment, operation, and maintenance of their network.
So very much the affirmative there from Stephen on the use of CNFs. Guy, would you agree?
Yeah, I do, Ray. And we have to remember we're still talking about network functions. These used to be only physical, and then they were virtualized, and now we're starting to build and deploy cloud native versions, not to be confused with the term containerized network functions. If we're talking cloud native network functions, then we really should be creating these from scratch and not reskinning old VNFs. They need to be built from the ground up using cloud native tools. Otherwise, what's the point? If telcos want the associated benefits, they can't cut corners.
Yeah, absolutely. And Chris, are we in the era of CNFs?
We're certainly moving in that direction. I think many of the telcos that I talk to are deploying them. They're better understanding how they can move from where they are today. And we know there's a lot of legacy around still. So they're identifying the opportunities where they can move things more quickly in the short term and building towards where everything becomes cloud native. But that's a long journey. I think we understand from many telcos that there's some distance to go, but we're moving in the right direction.
Yep, still very early on in that process. Now, another major topic is, of course, the role of the public cloud giants in the telecom sector. For a long time, the hyperscalers have been talked about as providers of huge compute and storage estates that could be utilized by telcos as well as other enterprises. But I asked Telco DR's Danielle Royston if the software stack R&D efforts of the hyperscalers can also benefit telcos.
I think the operators have moved on from thinking about the public cloud as a dumb data center with hardware. And I've been saying this for a while. It's not about the hardware there. It's about the software. What you have here now are components of software complete with APIs that make it very easy to quickly integrate and use, like Lego blocks, to build applications that would have previously taken months to build. And now it takes days. And that's the advancement operators need to use.
Interesting. So, Guy, there does seem to be a lot of assets available to service providers in the public cloud.
Yes, Ray, there are. And, she's not wrong. The software stacks of the public cloud giants are important to telcos. In fact, one of our other speakers at the World Forum, Paul Grunsund of Telenor, he reminded us that it's not just about using the hyperscaler services, it's also about their technology. And yes, telcos should absolutely look to adopt the technology that these global companies are developing, and also developing very rapidly.
Yeah, absolutely. Great point. Chris, there's a lot more to the hyperscalers than just these massive IT estates, isn't there?
There certainly is, and what we're beginning to see, Ray, is this combination of telco and hyperscalers and the expertise that they bring, whether it be around analytics, now of course around some of the telecoms technology, or indeed just around their relevance with other enterprise customers. So yeah, it's the interplay between telcos and hyperscalers. It's certainly not just about the power of their data centers.
Yeah, they're really bringing a lot to the table. Now, of course, this isn't to say that the hardware is any less important. In fact, it sometimes gets left in the shadows these days as software takes the limelight. But there are important hardware efforts ongoing in the telecom sector. One recent example is the unveiling of a server platform from HPE designed specifically for Open RAN deployments. So I asked Phil Mottram, now head of the vendor's communications technology group, if there's pent-up demand from telcos for dedicated server platforms for applications such as Open RAN.
Absolutely, we see lots of demand for the platforms we've launched. When you look at operators and how they're rolling out 5G, on the core side, they're leveraging mainstream servers. But on the RAN side, for Open RAN and virtual RAN, they need more flexibility and they need telco-specific designs. And we've launched our new products. We've seen a tremendous response from the market.
Well, I guess it's easy to say, well, he would say that, but for years, major telcos have been saying that they'll need a mix of off-the-shelf servers and specific hardware for their telco cloud and virtualization efforts. So does this seem right to you, Guy?
Yeah, well, focusing on software only gets us so far, and we really do need optimized hardware and components, and even down to silicon to achieve the maximum benefits. And I think this leads back to the 5G energy roundtable we had during the DSP Leaders World Forum week, where we discussed that the only way we can truly minimize energy consumption is to make sure we're using optimized hardware. So application-specific hardware problems, yes, I think we do need to go this route.
Okay, yeah, that's right. That did crop up. Chris, is there enough focus on the hardware efforts in the telecom sector these days?
I think the emphasis on software, of course, changes the way we think about the industry, but underpinning it, as Guy said, even down to the silicon, as we begin to collapse the networks into a more homogeneous sort of environment, then that silicon becomes critical. So a degree of specialization is always going to be required to underpin the wide variety of services that the telco is going to have to deliver in this emerging environment.
Okay, great. And I feel like we're starting to see more innovation or new innovation in this area in 2021. Now, the technology developments are, of course, part of the bigger picture, the business picture. And ultimately, that boils down to how service providers develop their portfolios to grow their customer bases, their revenues, and their margins. So with that slightly more business-oriented angle in mind, let's meet our second set of special guests and find out what they're pouring into their favourite mugs. Let's start with Obinna Ogonu, Director of GSP Solutions Engineering at Worldwide Technology, or WWT. Is he a coffee fan or a tea fan?
So that's a good question as well. I'm neither of the two. I'm actually a chocolate type of person. Coffee, tea, but if you give me a hot cup of chocolate, that gets me going.
Wow, our first hot chocolate fan. Chris, how are your excitement levels?
Well, Ray, everyone's a winner, and it probably started with a kiss. Yeah, hot chocolate right up there on the hit list.
Oh, absolutely brilliant. I mean, you are known as the 70s popmeister, Chris, so living up to your reputation. Okay, now what about Rick Hamilton from Blue Planet? Does he lean towards coffee or tea?
Well, actually, I'm both, Ray. I'm a coffee person in the morning. I drink tea in the afternoon, and I drink espresso in the evening. So a little bit of everything.
And so Rick joins our fence sitters. Variety is the spice of life, as my granny used to say. She tucked into yet another bag of M&Ms. Now, does Ari Banerjee from Netcracker like a little bit of everything too?
I'm a coffee person, and I like light roast.
Okay, straight down the barrel there from Ari. Light roast, though, isn't that like alcohol-free beer? Again, I feel a discussion for another day. So let's get stuck into what some people might regard as the important stuff. Now, the concept of the telco app marketplace is becoming more realistic and appealing to service providers, especially as they start to implement an edge computing strategy. So I asked Obi Ogonu from WWT, what is the key first step that service providers need to take if they're to develop a telco app marketplace to complement their edge ambitions?
So service providers need to understand the business case or the business challenge that their enterprise customers need solved. This will effectively help dictate what the ingredients, if you will, of that partner ecosystem or telco app marketplace would look like. For example, retail companies or institutions that are going through rapid digital transformation, particularly at the edge, to improve customer experience or back-end processes, will require a different set of edge applications or have a different set of requirements than IoT or manufacturing-focused companies that need to leverage technology for things such as cloud-based controls or warehouse robotics or even high throughput or performance, to serve AR or VR type applications for factory technicians. And the same holds true for various other enterprise verticals. So emphasis must be placed on understanding what problems service providers are solving for, and then working very closely with, ISV partners to create that telco app marketplace to complement their edge ambitions.
Yeah, interesting. I mean, obviously, I like anything that references ingredients and menus, but it's really a mantra now that service providers need to better understand their enterprise customers and the specific needs of verticals. Chris, do you feel that this is even more important than ever these days?
It is more important than ever, but from an enterprise point of view, of course, the telecom piece, the connectivity, even down to the edge, is just part of the mix required. So my concern is the requirement for telcos to better understand and work with partners and channels, because often it's the channels that the enterprise will prefer working with. And so, it is important to understand the end customer, but it's also important to understand how to work through channels to get to those customers and service them.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Great point. It really is that mix of relationships. Now, automation is, of course, also a hot topic and has been for a few years now. But what does this mean for the business aspirations of service providers? I asked Rick Hamilton of Blue Planet how automation can help CSPs develop new business opportunities.
Well, I think automation helps them develop new business opportunities in two key ways, right? The first is, the whole world has moved to demanding a digital experience. We're trained by the Amazons and Googles of the world. We have a great digital experience. We order whatever we want and it shows up tomorrow. And that requires automation. So that's a really key aspect for all the carriers. The second is, in order to deliver that digital experience, you need to have an agile infrastructure. You need to be flexible. You need to be constantly changing. And you need to be able to redirect some of your investment dollars into creating that digital experience. So automation helps them in the second way because it allows them to redefine their business processes and do them in a more efficient way. And those two things combined will really help drive kind of a new business or a new economy for all the CSPs around the world.
Okay, interesting there. And Chris, automation really is high up the agenda of a lot of service providers these days, isn't it?
It's right up there, Ray, because in order to, on the one hand, remove the complexity, remove the cost, the cumbersome business process that existed under legacy systems, so automate all of that. On the other side, to automate the delivery of services, the creation of services, bringing things to market, and actually creating that experience with the customer. As Rick said, it's just changing towards focused on the business processes rather than forcing the business process to fit in with the technology.
Yeah, great point, Chris. And of course, when it comes to business ambitions, a lot has been staked on the potential of 5G. Now, networks are being built, services are up and running, but at the end of the day, service providers need to make money from these services and have an efficient and relevant way to collect their dues. So I asked Ari Banerjee at Netcracker, what can the CSPs do to fully grasp the new business opportunities offered by 5G?
I think they need to focus and need to think beyond the network deployments, which tends to be the bigger focus for them. They need to pay more attention to partner-based, ecosystem-driven business model. In order to do that, they obviously need to focus a little bit more on their IT implementation and IT infrastructure capability, especially around operations orchestration and monetization capability. operators who will be able to make money from 5G will need to have a future-proof IT architecture, which is open, which is cloud native, which is real-time, and which is absolutely needs to be AI-driven.
So I think these are good points, but then I've always been a bit of an OSS and BSS fanboy. Too many years in Nice at the TM Forum events, I guess. But does Ari have a point? Do the operators focus enough on that business process side of 5G? Chris, what do you think?
I think they are increasingly having to understand those outside in pressures coming on them in terms of the way that connectivity and associated services actually work with end customers. So they are automating those processes. They're making them more cloud native, all the things we've talked about, because they've got to react to the market around them. The market around them no longer wants to react to the telco.
Yeah. And Guy, you've been unusually quiet for a while. Any thoughts on this at all?
Yes, very well. I've been pondering on what all this actually means, and I think we need to start talking like management consultants for a moment. Now, with 5G, we've taken the hype elevator to the summit of optimism, but as we deploy, we're starting to slide down the slope of second thoughts, and we're about to plummet down the route of regret and blind panic. So, are we going to crash and burn? Or are we going to slingshot away towards the far havens of "I told you so and you should have believed me from the start"? I think I'll get some t-shirts made for us all.
Please send me one of those t-shirts. I need those for the collection. I need to wear those when I next go out into the wild. Excellent. Well, we've certainly covered a great deal of ground in today's show, but of course, we're not done yet, because we need to take a look at the updated containerized beverage function leaderboard. So how's it looking, Guy?
Well, Ray, we are definitely going to need a bigger boat. Here it is, the ever-expanding ecosystem that is the containerized beverage function. And it's good news for BT's Neil McRae, because he is no longer out on his own in that neither side. Meanwhile, the Coffee Fan Club stretches out its lead. But I do think we need a UI overhaul for our next program. This old school chalkboard is looking a bit dated now. We need to get the developers in to take a look.
Absolutely. This board is getting out of control. We need to raise a few tens of millions and hand it over to some developers who may not know what they're doing. Okay, yep, definitely need a rethink there. But we're coming to the end of this extra shot. But we'll be back very soon following our upcoming Open Telco Summit, which will be bringing a new set of faces and conversations to the world of digital discussions in mid-April. So it just leaves me to say thanks very much to Guy and Chris for joining me today, and thanks to you for watching. Keep on brewing.